internet, figured I'd take the time to do a teach video for anyone who's never played a coin game before. And I figured with the only one I've ever played with, which is the British way, the Palestinian map from GMT Games. Thank you to the co-designer, Joe Drewhurst, for answering questions on Poor Game Geek in a real good time, within 24 hours still, years after the game's release. It's very handy. Figured I'd give an explanation of all the operations and special activities, and with demonstrations, mostly for my own benefit, in case I need to relearn this game in a few months' time, maybe a few years' time, if I forget to play it and learn a bunch of other things. So, I figured I'd just do an introductory onto how would you teach this. How would you teach a coin game to someone who's never played one before? And I did manage to do just that a weekend or two ago. I taught a game, and he played the Ergon pieces fairly well, but I still won. But while it is easier to play with the Ergon, I think it's harder to win with the Ergon, but that's just based on the games that I've played with myself. And, you know, playing with yourself is, it's your style of game versus your style of game. So unlike Euro games, where it's generally just get victory points and whoever gets the most victory points wins, in this sense it's more about the Ergon player has to lower the British. The British already have the victory points. The Ergon rather have to lower the British will down to 0. And it's not as simple as just running around beating up the British. It's done a bit more strategically. Within the deck there's 21 cards, if that one's already drawn on top from the auto setup, but there's 21 cards. You have 3 stacks of 7, and on the bottom of those 7 stacks, within the bottom 3 is a propaganda card, and that's when you do the scoring. So it adds an element of you've got to pay attention to what number the cards are at, and like whether you should plan ahead for something big or just try to score minor moves, because the scoring round may be coming up very soon. And it's best to work backwards when teaching this game, I figure, because it's like, well, how do you actually win? Well, you've got to score points. So scoring points is done. There's 3 propaganda. Yeah, I've explained that fairly well enough. There's 3 cards basically stacked within there, and within those 7 cards, they'll either be the 5th, 6th, or 7th of each stack of 7 that's in there. So the Ergon players get 1 point for every sabotage marker that's in a region, or I hope I'm using the terminology words right. Districts. That's a district. Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa are cities, and these are railways. So 1 point for a district. Yep, got the right word. 2 points if it's a city. 3 points if you manage to get it to Terra in a city. And 2 points per a railway track. Yes. But along with that, you also have to think of it in terms of your score getting weakened by not doing things. If the British player can reduce damage, they score points. If none of the railway markers have a sabotage marker, if none of the railway tracks areas, I'll try to use the proper terms if possible, have sabotage markers, then the British player will receive 2 points, and they get also 1 point for each city without a sabotage marker. So, just with that, for the Ergon player, you're obviously going to want to have at least one railway line sabotage, otherwise you're losing 2 points straight up, and you're losing 1 point for each city that doesn't have a sabotage marker. So they're your key objectives. Sabotaging in the districts. It's districts, isn't it? Yes, it's districts. It only scores 1 point, and it's generally not worth it. Although, that said, it is a bit harder for it's likely going to be a bit harder for the British to come out and harass you in these districts. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts, 6 districts if you scroll down properly and look at everything. So it's a possible 6 points, but you would have to do 6 actions. Well, that said, you do get region. You do get to do it in 3 regions with a major sabotage action. But I'll get into that later. Back to the propaganda round. Just so you have an understanding of how the scoring works, I think is the best way to think of it. And that's just saying, is victory met? Is it the final one? Do you want to no, you want to keep going on. It's important to do cleanup after the first propaganda round. We'll worry about that a bit later. And just run through a few things. Adjacency. The railway tracks are adjacent to the districts and cities they connect to. Pardon me. Gaza, for example, is adjacent to this railway track here. Jerusalem and Lydda. I apologise for the pronunciation and of every city and region I've never heard pronounced. I know that's Galilee because Johnny Cash sang a song about that. That might be a cover. Yes, so Lydia is a good one because it's adjacent to Tel Aviv. It's adjacent to the Jerusalem's district, not a city. The Gaza district, the Samaria district, and it's adjacent to 3 railway areas, regions, place spots. I don't think the jargon's that important. You'll know where a spot is once you get into it. yes. So you have an understanding of adjacency now. That said, adjacency isn't that big of a deal in the game. I think the only time you need adjacency is for moving troops in a search. There may be one or two other things, but a lot of things just let you move pieces to any one destination regardless of their destination. Yeah, regardless of their destination. Or starting. What's the opposite word for destination in this game? Origin space. Yeah, that's the word. The Ergon have these discs that are not bases, but they are weapons caches. The equivalent is the British have intel shits. I didn't know CHITS was a word and what it meant until I saw this game. And yes, apparently they are shits. You have curfew markers. They're another factor in the game that can come up, but we'll get on to that as we go on. Another very important concept when starting out and learning the game is that the Haganah track starts at 4 and they're coordinating with the Ergon to cause a bit of trouble in British run Palestine. So the Haganah are the main, what generally will become the IDF in the future. And they were trained by the British after the Arabs ran and attacked them. The British thought, better train them a bit. There's lots of history and stuff in the book to explain all of that if you're interested. It's not really a cube pusher in the standard Euro sense, even if you are just pushing cubes around. There's a bit more to it. So with this is really important to remember because one time I did play it and I completely forgot. At the start, the Haganah gets one additional space to any operation or limited operation. So if they're doing a full operation, that means 4 spaces instead of 3, and that is absolutely huge. And as such, it is absolutely huge for the British to get it off that space. They can also, once that comes down, you start filling pieces from available. I'm not 100% sure. If there's none in available, they might come from prison. And if there's none in prison, then the Ergon player selects pieces from the map to drag them here. Once it goes down there, you'd be filling them up. And likewise, once that does go back in, he'd go back to available. So that starts up there. Getting that down to 0, of course, is pretty good as it gets an intel shit for the British player during propaganda rounds, and it basically angers the Ergon player who would much rather have that on 4 and maybe have their pieces back. I've found playing games solo, I find I end up with quite a few pieces still available here and just running around with the pieces I have on the board trying to do stuff. But that said, I did have a permanent card that blocked pieces from going to prison last time I played, so that obviously affected that. And I guess I'll run through that as well. You have normal cards, and then you have cards that will have either British or Ergon capability in the middle. That's just flavor text. You don't need to worry about about whether it's Ergon or British capability. It's just to signify its historical effect. Preparing for the next Hagan track 4 no longer adds an additional space for the Ergons. That is amazingly huge. And Haganah 3 support also adds. Oh boy, that card is absolutely for the first card to come out in the game. Something like that is absolutely huge, and yeah, being the first player, you would definitely take that card. That is, this is pretty basic. Pick whatever you want, and who's ever to the furthest left goes first next turn. A lot of this is easy. It's just I found this game. It's not a steep learning curve, rather than it's an incline with lots of caveats involved. So I'll get on to explaining every single operation and special activity. Deploy for the British is place, police, and reposition troops up to 3 districts or cities with more troops than Ergon pieces. So I play a bit of Euro games, but competitively for a while. I was a HeroClix player, and part of being a HeroClix player, it's about knowing the rules and seeing a lot of the times it's about outsmarting your opponent, about who understands the rules better. So, and with GMT games, it's different. You've got to take everything literally, and there's less. Everything's very tidy in GMT. It's just very short explanations that are sentences, rather than long explanations. The long explanations are on Board Game Geek, and yes, thank you to the guys on there who still answer all the questions. So up to 3 districts. Now, what does it mean up to 3? Well, if you go limited up, then it's just 1. But if you go to this space, it just says op. You can think of it as full op. In that case, you get 3 spaces. And of course, there is the caveat of there's this that will grant one extra space, and you can also pay an intel shoot to grant 1 extra space. I'm a bit worried my headphones battery might go flat in a moment. I'll just wait for another beep in my ear. Anyway, so you've got the concept of it's either generally going to be 1 or 3 districts generally, but there are ways to boost those numbers. And there's a little reminder down there on how to do that and everything. So with the idea of taking everything literally, you can place them into districts or cities with more troops than ergon pieces. So what you might be wondering is, well, what if there's a district that had no pieces in it? That's just how a lot of board game players can't, or maybe perhaps HeroClix players try to break the game in order to win. And in this, you just take it literally. And it's a yes or no question. Are there more troops in an empty space than there are ergon pieces? No, there's no troops. So that's how that goes. Place 1 police in each selected space, then may move any troops to any one space, even railway, and even if it's limited operation, meaning it's 1, so you still get to place, if it was a limited op, you still get 1 district to place a police officer in 1 selected space, then may move any troops to any one space. So that any one space does not need to be the same space that the 1 police officer was in. It can be anywhere, and troops can move any number of troops from any origin space can move to 1. For example, if you were to do as a full operation, there's a good chance you'd stack them into the cities, just because the ergon player is likely to be targeting either the cities or the railways, and that way your police are always adjacent in case they need to move on. I think that makes sense. The other thing I haven't mentioned is with the operations they have accompanying special activities, so you're restricted to either doing restore or negotiate. You can't do mass detention. If you do deploy with patrol, you can only do a negotiate, etc., etc. Assault only, mass detention. If you can't, in many cases, a lot of cases, especially later game, you'll find you cannot do any of the special activities just because the resources and the positioning of where pieces are on the map just aren't there. But obviously sometimes you want to do the operation in 3 spaces instead of 1 to hopefully save the game, get the victory. Parole is for moving police and removing the cells to prison. May move any police to any destination spaces. Full stop. Limited 3 in a special or full op, and just the 1 space. But that does mean the likelihood of having multiple police officers in a 1 area and wanting to move them both out of that area is pretty rare, I'd say. You're generally going to want to keep 1 police officer in a city, but then again, you never know. The events may throw a spanner in the works. Then in one destination space, remove one active cell to prison per police officer. Well, that just contradicts what I just said. You may want to throw a bunch of active cells into prison, and this is a good way to do it without any repercussions, except you'll be leaving spaces available that don't have police officers in them, and it's good to have police officers in your cities. So here's one instance where you can use a British intel shit for something good. You can actually remove the underground cells as equal to the number to remove them as well. I haven't really run over that, but you activate cells to do actions, generally to sabotage, but they may activate for one or two other things. But we'll get to that when it happens, when we run through everything. We've covered parole. Search the purposes to move troops, activate cells, and place curfews. This is one of the fiddliest ones. This is a big caveat one that you really got to read and understand. So, move any troops into adjacent destinations. That's easy enough. Everyone understands that. If it's a railway or a district, activate one cell for every 2 cubes. That's easy as. And this is a big part of the game. Probably 20% of the game, I'd say, maybe even 30, is moving 2 troops to activate the ergon pace, and that way he can't do a sabotage next turn. It really fixes his wagon. So any number of troops into an adjacent space, and you just need 2 to activate one of theirs. However, if it's a city, you place a curfew marker. If there are none, you can't stack curfew markers. It's just one per city, and they only work in cities, not in districts, not on railway lines. Spaces. Yeah, spaces is the correct terminology for this game. And activate 1 cell for every 3 cubes. What are cubes? Cubes are both troops and police officers together. So here you've got 3 cubes. Bam. So curfew marker and the city. So we'll just run through what it would look like in practice. In case you wanted to mix it up, a search up, and do some on railway. Say you did a full operation and you got 3 destination spaces that you wanted to do this in. We'll pick one of each. Say, they're down there. He was over there. Say, for example, he was already on that line. Yeah, we'll just use these bottom 3 areas as a example. Say we'll pick this line, this region, and the city to do our searching. So you can move any number of troops from anywhere. We can can even go one from there, one from there, because it doesn't limit the origin spaces. They don't. Hang on. Is this adjacent? Yes, adjacent. So they do have to be adjacent. I can't teleport them in from other spaces, but as we explained with adjacency, this is adjacent if there are troops here or troops in the district of Jerusalem. Jerusalem troops could not jump over to this railway line. They could only jump onto this one or into Lydia or up here or into Jerusalem City. But we'll just run through the full operation of doing a search in all three different spaces. So we're searching here, and the game comes with these pawns, which might do something on the other maps, but for Palestine, they're just good to use as markers of where you've done stuff. In case you are having one of those turns that takes more than 10 minutes, and I have spent one turn doing an hour, I think is my record, of trying to think how to maximize things. So we've got the destination spaces of 1, 2 and 3. We're moving adjacent troops into them. Forgot to drag him. And these troops are already in there. So may move any troops into a destination space. Railway district. So we'll do the railway district first. Every 2 troops. Bang. Bang. 2. Easy. With a city, it's a bit different. It's 3 cubes are needed. And we've got 3 cubes, and it comes with a curfew marker. I'll explain curfew markers after everything else, after I've gone through all the operations and activities. And then you bing him, and that's a reasonably good turn. You probably wouldn't go hunting someone in a district unless it was like the only guy available who was underground and he just happened to be there adjacent to some troops. You may as well ping him. But generally you're going to be wanting to activate ones in cities and on railway lines first, if possible. Curfew marker, everything is. Or discard 1 intel shoot to activate 1 cell per cube. That is pretty good. It's probably a bit rare that you're going to find multiple underground cells in a city. The situation could arise where you have an intel shoot available. Sometimes I call them shoots, I mean shits. And you want to you would need an intel shoot of 2 to go bam, bam, back in the bag. Oh yeah, that is another good concept. They go back in the bag and are reshuffled rather than discarded once spent. I'm 90% sure on that. There. Yep, microphone battery is still active by the looks, and I'm not just talking to myself. Then there is assault. This is to remove her, and Troops and ergon pieces. Remove one for every 2 troops. Active ergon piece for every 2 troops. So, much like before, if we did it now, we've got 2 troops, 1 active, boom, off you go. I believe this goes to available, it alternates to available and prison, but we'll check. Alternate to available in prison, yep. What else? Maybe underground. See, another place where you can spend your intel shits to remove them underground, which is quite good. And then you've got caches. Only when there's no cells remaining. So, for instance, if I did a assault here, it would be boom. You would send him off to available first, and then if you did happen to have already 2 troops in here, because it is in the same region, same space rather, you could then remove the weapons cache and receive is it one political will? Yes, your political will would rise up, removing that. So you may be thinking, why would the Ergon player want these lying around if they're going to help the British? And same goes for these. You might be thinking, why do you want these hanging around if they can potentially help the Ergon players? I would say that generally they are more benefit to their own side. It's just a little thing you just got to watch out for. Obviously, you want to don't move guys out and leave your weapons case exposed. Would be a good idea. So we've gone through that, and I think we understand all of that. And you get an intel sheet for, along with getting that +1 political will, you also draw an intel sheet, and some of them are 0, which is a real kick in the nads, but I guess once we get to the dice rolls, it is kind of all about mitigating the randomness of life, I guess, the fog of war and all of that. So, with your operations, if you're doing the full operations and special activity over here, you also get to do a special activity. You can actually do special activities before, during, or after operations. I haven't thought too hard about this, but I don't think I've ever come across a time where it mattered, or I've always just done them after doing the operations. But there's always caveats and corner cases that may come along. So restore. The purpose is to remove sabotage markers and it's not to remove curfew markers. That's not really your purpose. Your purpose is to remove sabotage and terror markers because that's what scores the Ergon P points. And if you can basically run around and fix the map, that's obviously going to cause less damage to your political will. So in addition to running around and fixing the map, you're also running around and stopping potential damage by either sending them off to available prison or just at least flipping them over, so it's going to take them another turn to move somewhere and to get reset to underground. So the only way you can do a restore action is if you do deploy as per here, unless it comes up in a card event, which it very well could. Location, one space with troops, police, and no ergon. So, practically what does this mean? It means you have to get rid of them from the space before you can get rid of their sabotage or terror markers first. So you've got to do the previous operations I've explained first, to come along and either spend an intel shoot to remove him for being from being unactivated underground, or he'd likely be exposed active if there is a sabotage marker there, in which case you would just have to get 2 troops along to go root. The other option is, of course, to move your police along in order to get rid of them, and then once that's done, then you remove the curfew marker and the sabotage markers, and you flip the terror marker to its sabotage. So, with that in mind, that's going to be, it's not just going to be 3 points for the ergon player, but you'll actually lose a point because if the token was removed, you get +1 point. So that's a good way of thinking about things. If you're keeping score in your head. So that's restore. You do need troops and police in order to do that. So it is a bit of running around, and this is why doing sabotage, if you think a propaganda round's coming up and you have guys out here with no police in sight, and you think you're up to the 5th, 6th or 7th card within the 3rd of the deck, you may as well get some damage off before scoring. Negotiate's an easy one. It is simply a roll to shift the track this way. Pardon me. You do have to roll a 5 or 6. Has to be higher. The weird thing is, the further down you go, the easier it gets. You just have to roll a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 once you're on 1, and boom, you're on 0. And in order to do the negotiate, you can do any of them except assault. Mass detention. Remove cells from city and adjacent districts. This can occur after a search or assault operation. Pardon me. I'm through my second coffee, but Still exhausted. I did not get much sleep last night with my disc bulging into my spinal cord. So this removes cells from a city and adjacent districts. A railway line is not a district. It is a railway. It is a space. District is capitalised. That's one way to help you remember what it is you're doing. So one city with a curfew marker and at least 3 troops. So this is where curfew markers come in handy. However, you simply roll a die. Remove 1 die roll of ergon cells from the city and adjacent spaces to prison. If roll is greater than the cells, remove cells, subtract the remainder from political will. So this is a very situational way to remove spaces, remove cells from the board, because if you were to do it in Tel Aviv right now, there's only this and this being adjacent, this being in there. So on a roll of 3, you're going to be losing 1. On a roll of 4, you're losing 2. 5 3 and 6 3 4. It's a very risky move. It's only if pieces were really stacked up, and it has happened where I have used this, but on the first 1 or 2 games I made lots of mistakes playing this game, and so the way the board the situation was maybe unrealistic if you were playing by the rules properly, but something like this obviously would be a good time to do it, because you got 1, 2, 3 and 4, and that way you're rolling your dice, and you'd lose 2 political will, but you would get them off to prison. So yes, there's a little reminder down here at how to raise political will. So that's the British ones explained. I might do a 2-part video just so I can recharge my wireless headphones and drink some water. Yes, hope that was a help. Cheers.